Yeah.
Do you have a quorum?
We do.
Okay, let's rock. So I want to go through the use table. This is always the most difficult task. And I'm trying to put this thing to bed. So the closer we can come to putting it to bed today, the more we can focus on other parts of this. So what I've done is broken it up a lot more than it was broken up in the existing bylaw. And I think it makes it a little easier, more user-friendly for people. So why don't we walk through it a page at a time, since I broke out all the sections into individual pages. I think the only notable thing on the first page is lodging house and I think 7, 8, and 9, lodging house, cluster development, and senior housing. So on lodging house, I guess my first question is, why do you want a lodging house? Or even more appropriately, do you have a lodging house?
I think this may be a clarification of existing definition.
Okay.
Because that has been the focal point of a recent application, so it's all fresh in our mind.
If I could add, I'd like to add a lodging house to our table to be defined or in our definitions anyways, but I wouldn't want to remove our tourist home on the uses. It's like an expansion on the bed and breakfast, but still out of a single family home.
Yeah, I think if I remember tourist home, you can have up to like 9 or 10. Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks like they removed B and B as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to get rid of that either.
I might have moved that over to accessory. Let me just look.
Oh, so that maybe I missed it.
Maybe yeah, I'll add it back to the residential uses.
It's not residential and not accessory.
It's kind of 50-50, you know? It's both the principal use and an accessory use, because usually the proprietors are living in the main house, the main building on the property. So you want to keep tourist home as differentiated from lodging house?
Well, I would, yeah, because it's out of a single family residence as opposed to a standalone boarding house, which is essentially the same as a motel or a hotel. If there was a way to group like a boarding home that's not a Dover amendment, so just like a transient housing that's not out of a single home, that should be grouped, I think, with a hotel motel.
I think, Mark, I don't think we formally met. I'm Nick Iafredi, the building commissioner, zoning enforcement officer. I haven't made it to a meeting yet, so nice to virtually meet you, sir.
Thanks.
Lots of great things about you, so excited to inject my opinion, I guess we could say. But I guess what I'm thinking, Steve, is, and Mark, you've done this a heck of a lot longer than me, but we don't have a definition of tourist home. And I don't think I have one in my building code either. So I think that's where our hangup was on the most recent petition in front of the planning board, Tim, right? Is that what you're referring to? And
we have tourist home. We don't have lodging or rooming.
That's right. We have tourist home defined.
Where did I get that definition for lodging house from? My stock definitions? Because I added one.
Yeah, Massa law, probably.
Okay, let me look up tourist home in this wonderful, very useful book. I think some folks at Rutgers had time on their hands. Yeah, we've got a definition here for tourist home. It says, An establishment in a private dwelling that supplies temporary accommodations to overnight guests for a fee, kind of like bed and breakfast. It says C, bed and breakfast.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
out of a private.
Yeah, you want to live with that, an establishment in a private dwelling that supplies temporary accommodations to overnight guests for a fee. Now, bed and breakfast was limited to a certain number of people, wasn't it?
Yes, it is.
And what is that? Remind me.
I think it's 10. Three guests for a bed and breakfast.
So it'd be 3 guests for a bed and breakfast and 4 to 10 for a tourist home?
Yes,
You can live with that.
that's our current definition.
Yeah.
Is it
Right, let
2
me-
guests per unit or total on a B&B?
3
Rooms.
guest rooms.
Rooms.
Okay.
1 to 3 guest rooms that can be occupied, what does it say? So a private owner occupied residence with 1 to 3 guest rooms. The bed and breakfast is subordinate and incidental to the main residential use of the building. Individual guests are prohibited from staying at a particular bed and breakfast establishment for more than 14 consecutive days in any 1-year period.
Perfect. I like that one.
Right. I just gave you the new definitions. I didn't give you the old ones. So I'll go back and make sure that we have that. And then I'll add my definition to the new ones for tourist home. And I think that's where we are. Let me just find the right place for it.
I think the difference between the bed and breakfast and a tourist home is that it, aside from the more guests, they don't have to provide food.
They don't even have to provide breakfast.
Just the bed.
Right.
Oh.
Okay. Cluster development. How's that working out? Is anybody taking advantage of it?
Yes.
We have one right now actually currently going on.
How successful has it been since you adopted it years ago?
I've been working in since 2019, so this is the first one I've seen.
Does it look like it's going to be a great addition to the community?
Well, it's kind of off the beaten path. I think they do well, but I think it's fairly, in my opinion, from a developer, I think it's fairly restrictive. I don't think it really allows for much.
Well, I usually recommend a device, and it's probably in about 50 places now, called flexible development. Do any of you know where Canyon Forge is in Foxborough?
No.
Not that far away. Might be worth it to take a look. So Canyon Forge is a couple of 100 acres. It's off Mechanic Street. And it basically allows for singles, duplex, and tris. The way it works is you do a yield plan. How much development can occur on the property in full conformance with zoning, subdivision, wetlands regulations, considering water, sewer, parking. Let's hypothetically say that the answer is 20. If you want to build those 20 without respect to frontage or lot width or area requirements, in fact, there are no requirements. You could build this as a condominium if you wanted to. Then take advantage of that. The benefit to the community is that probably the most valuable resource on the property, whether it's a meadow or a wooded area or a pond, is protected because you're not spreading the houses out so widely. You're clustering them in a specific limited area. For the developer, there's an advantage just sticking with 20 because I can shorten up the roads and save hundreds of thousands of dollars. And as long as what gets approved on special permit, usually by the planning board, is something that you like, well, then that's a good deal for everybody. It also contains a provision that says that you can add a few units, and typically those units would be for more open space, very low minimum open space, 20%. I'll bet yours is 50 in the cluster, or something higher than 20. That's for sure. So the idea would be to incentivize the developer to take advantage of this and get them into the room to talk about a better style of development than a conventional subdivision. And because it's on special permit, if the developer is intractable, you don't have to give them anything. You just send them back to the subdivision regs and they go forward under subdivision. But I think it makes for a really positive way of doing things. I put this into Berkeley and Dayton 25 years ago, and they've used a few of these on a few of the subdivisions. The town that does the most work on this is Groton. I don't think they've had a conventional subdivision since the 1990s. Every one of them is a flexible development. So it takes a little more work. My rule of thumb is that a third of the developers will take a look at it and do it. A third will do it only if you educate them and prod them to do it. And the third will tell you to pound sand and they'll never do it. And they don't have to. They can stick with a conventional subdivision. Right now, all I'm asking you to do is take a look at it. And I'll send it to you as a file when I send the next stuff around. But if you only had one of these things in the past 30 years.
Oh,
maybe
no, there's
been a
more.
couple
I
other
live in
ones.
one.
We've
been
had
a
many
couple other
cluster
ones.
developments for
Yeah.
sure.
There's-
I'd be interested to see
You're
what
all,
difference.
you're all talking at the same time. Somebody say what you want to say. You live in one?
Yes, we have significantly more than one. I can think of 5
Okay.
at least, and maybe
Do
more.
they look different when you drive in or drive by?
No, other than the lots are smaller, they look like a nice subdivision.
Okay. Well, take a peek at it. We don't have to change it. I'm just suggesting that. And then the other thing I had here was number 9, which is senior housing. If I remember correctly, you had something about assisted living.
We are housing for the elderly.
Yeah, well, that can mean anything.
It also has nursing and convalescent homes scratched out.
Yeah, so nursing and convalescent homes are politically incorrect today. You would call it a long-term care facility under state regulations. And housing for the elderly, could really be a subdivision in which 80% of the units are restricted to one occupant 55 years or older, which is the Federal Fair Housing Act. So what I'm calling senior housing, and you will see it when I distribute the model, is independent living, assisted living, memory unit care, long-term care, or congregate care, meaning some combination of the other ones I just mentioned. And I think, I'm eligible, certainly, and I just put my parents through 20 years of this. Learned quite a bit about the industry. So the idea would be that this is available by special permit. And it would allow people to age in place, basically. But I'm looking at opening up this into the greater diversity of types. Because I can tell you right now, when you put your parents in independent living, you're 3 years away from moving them into assisted living. When you put them in assisted living, you're 2 years away from putting them into memory care. When you put them into memory care, you're 1.5 years away from putting them into long-term. That's my history.
To speak on this a little bit, I've looked a little bit into the designs of dementia villages, they call them, where they plan like essentially a little community that's available to older folks or I suppose people that are handicapped, where it's essentially a place that's monitored or controlled to a bit of a degree, so it's familiar and accessible, at least fully ADA, beyond ADA compliant. If we could develop some sort of area that's made specifically for that type of design element, if anybody wants to look into dementia villages.
Well, that's kind of like memory unit in the typical parlance of the industry. So I don't think I've ever heard of that term, but we certainly could take a look at whatever you want to take a look at. The idea here would be to do it by special permit, pretty much in any district except the industrial. Before I go any further, somebody had an email after I circulated this a month ago or so. And the question was, you know, what does BA stand for? Well, that's Board of Appeals. I could not find in the bylaw as you approach the use table, a key. So your current use table just says, I think it just says SB, right? 3 different entities could be performing the function of SP. And that would be Board of Appeals, Planning Board, or Board of Selectmen. And it's not random. So you would have to name the entity that would perform the function. So typically what I do in the table is put Planning Board, PB if it's Planning Board, BA if it's Board of Appeals, or SB if it's Select Board. And I didn't see anything that would allow me to do that, so I just started poking at it. But I guess my statement here is that none of these things should be taken with anything but a grain of salt. If you want to change from one entity to the other, I mean, it makes sense, for example, to put PB for cluster development because it probably requires a subdivision application at the same time. I don't like sending people to 2 places when one will do. And the same thing would be true for senior housing developed as a subdivision. But it's like campus planning in many cases, which is more of a planning board job than a ZBA job. So just keep it in mind. If I got the wrong one, tell me and I'll make the correction.
I think in the existing use table, SP is special permit and all of that flows through the planning board.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anything that is, so that's, the planning board is the special permit granting authority and that's it.
Okay, and the Board of Appeals doesn't do any special permitting.
40B.
And they also, I would expect, handle alterations to nonconformities.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so I'll make all these BAs into PBs. But I
Unless Jim wants to volunteer for more work, I mean, that's also,
but I would leave open the possibility that there may one day may come when you want to put something BA. So I'll add a key and you'll see the breakout. So.
Yeah, we had checked with town council, and she had just said, you know, from her experience, planning board is generally the special permit granting authority when a site plan review is also required, which covers a decent amount of this territory.
Okay. It is usually hand-to-hand combat as to who's special permit granting authority. I mean, for example, and sometimes select boards most recently have kept all marijuana uses under their thumb. I see that a lot. But like Dedham does it slightly differently than most towns. They say that you might need, for example, a special permit. I'm looking down the chart here a few levels. You might need a special permit for a gas station, motor vehicle light service. But if the facility size exceeds 25,000, it's a major residential project, and all major residential projects go to the planning board for the special permit. So that's one way that's kind of functionally the equivalent of combining site plan and special permitting. 25,000 is just a made-up number. It could be 10,000, could be 15, could be 20.
we do the same thing with industrial or commercial or both.
Yeah.
It's over 10,000, so it kicks to a special permit. Surprisingly, we have a lot of applications for 9,900 square feet.
Well, and I
Not
doubt
that many, but enough.
And I doubt their wastewater systems exceed 9,900 gallons too. And they're at the Board of Health and not the DEP. Okay, so I'll make it PB throughout, but I will put a key in with BA and SB.
Could I ask why the under senior housing, under village center core, the permit is in red? Was that a question?
Yeah. I don't remember why I put it in red. Let me go up, let me look.
I think it's in red because there was no housing at all in Village Center Core.
No, it does allow housing for the elderly by special permit.
I think there's top of the shop housing too.
Yep, there is.
I don't know. I don't know why it's in red. Normally I have a better memory than that. I'll remember by the end. Okay. All right, let's look at B. So, what I typically find is that most towns cut the corner on what's protected by the Dover Amendment. I like to put what the Dover Amendment says. So uses of land or structures is in the Dover Amendment. The educational purposes on land owned or leased by the Commonwealth, blah, 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 that's in the chapter 48, section 3, and a child care center, school-age child care program is in the Dover Amendment protections of section 3 as well. And that's not to be confused, this child care center, with a family daycare home, which is typically done out of the house, and it has a small and a large size. Small is up to 6 non-resident kids. Large is up to 10 non-resident kids, resident or non-resident. And I'm considering that an accessory use, family daycare home. So it's back in the accessory use section. Those will pretty much, you have no choice. That's what you have to do. Essential services is what you called it, public uses, but there's a definition that I've added. And it's basically anything that functions as a monopoly, with oriented towards services. So water, utilities, gas, electricity, all of that stuff would be an essential service. The definition of an essential service is services provided by a public service corporation or by governmental agencies through erection, construction, alteration, gas, electric, steam, water, collection, communication, supply, disposal systems, not including wireless communications facilities. And the bottom line is that all of this is regulated or supervised at least by the DPU DTE. And you can require a special permit, which is what I recommended. I usually recommend it across the board, but right now you have just special permits in those boxes, and you allow it by right in other places. And I put it on a special permit across the board usually because they have the power to, if they think you're being unfair, they have the power to take you to DPU, DTE, and DPU, DTE can override your local authority. So you might, I guess the only suggestion I would have on this one is that you might think about putting a special permit requirement all the way across the board.
I have no issue with that.
Same.
All right, you want me to change it?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Okay. The next one is federal, state, county, or municipal. You have government buildings. To the extent it's federal or state or county, you can't regulate it with a special permit because of the supremacy clause. I had a recent case in Cambridge where the old Middlesex County Courthouse, all 260 feet of it, was decommissioned. The prisoners were kicked out of the top floor July of a few years, 5 years ago. And once the last prisoner left, DCAM took it over, the state's property agency, and they flipped it to Leggett McCall for $32 million. It's being redeveloped right now. So, but as long as it was built by the county, and then later it was owned by the state, as long as it's in a superior governmental hand, that is above the food chain of town, you can't regulate it. There's many cases on post offices from across the country, which is obviously federal. So I'm going to break that out into federal, state, or county buildings and put yes, and then keep local, municipal. And is that the way we want to regulate municipal buildings? So it would be what you see there. It would be PB, and 3 yeses and a no. But if it's federal, county, or state, you would have Ys all the way across.
I'm cool with that. It makes sense.
Okay.
Agreed.
I don't see us building another building for a very long time.
100 years, Laura, 100 years.
If we keep bringing in letting houses built here, maybe. You never know.
What do you see in other municipalities, Mark?
Well, remember, you're regulating yourself. So,
Yeah.
you know, the one thing people don't like is when you have an absolute right as a municipality to put the DPW yard in an expensive neighborhood.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing. So sometimes break it out. Municipal buildings, libraries, firehouses, put it anywhere you want. But the line begins to dissolve when you talk about municipal yards.
Yeah.
So I could make a separate thing that says, you know, municipal buildings and then municipal DPW yards and regulate it slightly differently. I mean, for example, in the R80, that's probably where you're going to have the most friction. Maybe you put it in the R80 by special permit.
I would just keep them as,
Agree.
I'd keep them as municipal buildings or uses as one combined use.
Okay. Well, there are a lot of different. Nobody cares if you build a dog park. Actually, some people probably
They
would.
do, trust me, they do.
R80 probably has the least friction too. It's the most loose with farming. Get the widest spaces.
The one benefit I do see to differentiating buildings from other uses like storage of large machinery is right now it says no in industrial, where DPW storage of materials or equipment might make sense to go into industrial.
Yeah.
I'm perfectly cool with that.
So maybe that is a cause for separating out municipal buildings versus municipal accessory properties.
But we shouldn't limit a municipal building from the industrial zone either if we need to have a department there.
No, that's a good point. Yeah.
It's all debatable, I guess, if it's under special permit anyways where it is, but we should have full reign as a town to put our stuff in any zone.
All right. So what I'm hearing then is
Get me in a bad mood, I'll say special permit everywhere and make them talk to us.
So if that's the case, then maybe we leave it as is and change municipal building or uses just to a Y in industrial.
well, let me suggest this. Number 5 will say federal, state, county, yes across the board. Number 6 will say municipal buildings, and it'll say PB in the 3 residential districts, And could you live with four yeses after that?
I could do the 4 yeses, but I wouldn't want the uses taken off of it.
And then my point would be that I think what you could say is municipal buildings or uses other than a DPW yard. I'll find a nicer way to say that. And then the next one would be municipal yard where materials and heavy vehicles are stored. And it would have its own regulations, which would probably be at least BA, through the first 3, and then I don't know what you do with the next 4. Does
I
that
think
make
we
sense?
already have regulations on how many commercial vehicles or large vehicles over a certain size can be on an individual lot in a residential zone. That might regulate even a municipal lot.
Well, the rule for municipalities is that you're free to do what you want. You're free to give yourself a ride, an exemption. But if you don't, you're stuck with the rules. And that's dimensional as well as use. So you could say the municipal buildings could be 100 feet tall. And you're free to treat them differently in that respect.
I mean, again, I would just say combine them into buildings and uses and do the yeses all the way into the industrial park. Just do the special permits in the residential zone.
Okay, so then it would have a line 6, and 6 would say municipal buildings or uses, and it would be 3 PBs and 4 yeses.
If that's cool with everyone else.
Hearing no objection.
Okay.
All right, public parks and recreation areas, I'm sure you want those. Hospital,
Sorry, can we stop there? Can I
Yeah.
ask how those uses are different than what's done in D? Open space and recreational uses.
it strikes me that most of these things in D, if not all of them, are private, not public.
Okay. Then going to back to the comment about the dog park,
Yeah.
or let's say a skateboard park. Do we want to require a special permit so that we have some ability to control where they're going and have the least amount of I can't think of the word I want to use, getting late. Impact, I guess, on residents. Skateboard parks can get noisy. If it's not special permitted, we don't have any ability to condition hours. We could have kids in there at midnight skateboarding, keeping up the neighbors.
And while you're talking about public,
Correct, yes.
gee, I think we could make the national news if we put pickleball in this. A public pickleball park is not popular.
No, no.
I have heard that one, yeah.
Neither are rail trails. Neither are rail trails.
Well, if you go back to D and look at the number 3, notice the hiking in yellow.
Yeah.
I represent Berkshire Natural Resources Council, and the angry neighbors who live next to the parking lot have said that the road is private, and as such, the hiking has to be limited to the parking lot parcel on a 650-acre site, and that hiking is not an allowed use because it's not in the zoning bylaw. We actually had to go to Berkshire Superior Court on that. And I'm pleased to say we're working it out, but the neighbors are despicable.
People can't walk in the woods, huh?
It's an open field. It's called Hollow Fields, and it's the crown jewel of BNRC's Southern County Holdings. It's spectacular.
If I could, on the passive outdoor, non-commercial, recreational uses, etc.
Yep.
Is there any way, I don't know how anybody else feels about this, that we can remove the word non-commercial? Do we not approve of any commercial use of like a beach or a picnic grove? Like, is there an option for that?
Well, I think I would take the word non-commercial to mean for which a fee is not paid. And I think I would say passive outdoor recreational uses, whether or not a fee is paid, such as blah, blah, blah. Like, for example, you can go to BNRC's Hollow Fields and you can hike and you don't pay a fee. But Mass Audubon has trails and you do pay a fee.
Well, hypothetically, what if somebody were only willing to open their land if they could charge a fee, like Borderland does? Do they not have an option to open up a park for a fee?
That's why I would put there passive outdoor recreational uses, comma, whether for a fee or not, comma, and take out non-commercial.
I would rather take out the word non-commercial and have the option of, somebody choosing to open up a place that they can actually make money off of.
I mean, one example of that is Everett Leonard Park.
Sure.
Which we already have, and they do charge a fee. It is town run.
Yeah. Well, if it's town run, it's probably back in column B or
Okay.
category B.
Because they're charging for it, though, does it put it over there?
No, I think, I could add the same language to number 6, public parks and recreation areas, playgrounds, whether for a fee or not. But they're public, they're governmental.
I would like to just, in my personally, I would like to not define whether it's a government enterprise or a private enterprise or whether or not it has a fee. A park or a beach or hiking should generally be something almost any entity can do in town.
Shouldn't we distinguish between a government property and a privately owned property though?
Well, I think we already do with government building or uses, or municipal government or uses. This is establishing what the use is, I guess, as a hiking trail or something like that.
It's a more specific use as opposed to the more general use.
It seems redundant if we have both outdoor recreational uses and municipal uses on our chart. To add municipal outdoor recreational uses is redundant, I think.
Yeah, you could make the argument that it's already included under municipal building or use. So why don't we just take number 6 out? But remember, municipal building or use is going to be 3 PBs and 4 yeses.
Oh no, I wouldn't take municipal building or uses out, but I think we should just, for passive outdoor recreation, just remove the word non-commercial. We don't have to add anything else to it or define it in another way. Just make sure that if somebody wants to do a park for a fee, that is allowed in our bylaw.
Okay. All right. I'm back at the end of B, which is 7 and 8. I don't think there's anything controversial there.
Well, did we talk about, was there no support for special permitting parks and recreations and playgrounds? Fair enough.
These are municipal. Remember, any federal, state, or county park or playground is going to be supremacy clause allowed.
Yeah.
So this reference to public parks and recreation areas is really, and playgrounds is really just municipal.
Could I also, sorry, before we go beyond the outdoor recreation, it's not allowed in the industrial zone. Is it debatable that we could special permit it, whether a hiking trail or something goes through an industrial zone, or?
We don't want people walking through an industrial park.
I mean, the rail trail goes through an industrial section.
Well, I was going to say that, yeah, think of the rail trail.
I mean, it literally goes right through it. There are trails in the industrial zone. Or look at like the Valentine property, Valentine Tool and Stamping. That's all industrial, but it's in the middle of the woods.
Yeah, I could see a commercial indoor recreational facility in an industrial zone.
Like a
I-
trampoline park?
yeah, or something like that. I feel less thrilled about people, there's hazardous materials, machinery.
I mean, I think all of that would have to be taken into consideration in the granting of the special permit, but again, we have trails that cross the industrial zone right now. There are people walking in the woods. A way to regulate it might be beneficial. But
Whose rail trail is it?
Mansfield mostly?
It's connecting through, it's the next portion that's going through the state. It's I forget who's,
Yeah, we have one that goes from, it's just about to be completed. It goes from Lowell to Framingham. Chelmsford, Westford, Acton, Concord. Sudbury's building out now. And then it goes into, I think it goes to Framingham from Sudbury. It's great.
people still don't like it.
No, people that live alongside it complain, I'm sure.
I would be thrilled. I would be so thrilled.
Yeah, it's great. It really is great.
It's out in the woods behind my house. It's fun.
Hop on your bike and go. That's great.
Yeah.
But it is, to reiterate, is there any special permit in the industrial zone, or is it a straight no for everybody?
Well, you've got some weird, I mean, why would, okay, I guess the park or the public land, you're not gonna stop it in the industrial zone. Municipal public parks and recreation areas, you could regulate that in the industrial zone.
Right, but does it need to be a
Just
straight
put
no?
I think just put special permit, and if we want to have a high bar for it, we can have a high bar for it.
There you go.
That's fair. Thank you.
Okay. All right, I made that change. Any problems with hospital? Any problems with cemetery?
We have a definition for hospital, right? Like, I'm just wanting to make sure the industrial park doesn't, like, we don't. I'm thinking of down by Quick Stop in that way.
I think a hospital requires like overnight stays.
Okay.
It's from a hospital and medical facility, just to delineate the two.
Yeah, typically a clinic is not an overnight stay and a hospital is. You don't have to stay overnight, but it allows for overnight stays.
I think that's why it was in the residential table originally.
Yeah, I don't
And then-
have the definition.
Cemetery definitely allows for overnight stays. Okay, let's go to sleep. You love your animals down there.
And are these, Steve, are these the ones that you had submitted as potentials?
I did a while back. This is not what I have submitted at all. But I got into the agricultural table a while ago and kind of broke it down. But essentially it's let's see, how could we break it down right here? Let me bring up what I had. My apologies. So if we just did agricultural uses as defined by Mass General Law, Chapter 128, 1A, then that would be clear enough to do as a special permit across the board. And any agricultural use that meets that law plus Mass General Law 40A, Section 3 would be allowed by right.
Yeah.
And that would cover the entire agricultural table.
Except that the first statute that you mentioned, I believe, includes certain types of agriculture that are generally unpopular, such as swine, livestock, fur-bearing animals.
Right, that's why it would go for special permit. And the only one we would guarantee by right is what meets Mass General Law 40A Section 3, which requires it to be on at least 2 acres and make money, or if not 5 acres. We're only allowed to regulate parcels under 2 acres that are farming.
Under 5, or if they're not qualified,
Can you define qualified, please?
There's a definition in the statute now that says it's an acre of land which generates at least $1,000 in business a year. And it only has to have 2 acres if it does. Whereas if it's, the old definition is the 5 acres in the parcel, including any roads that go through the parcel, yada, yada, yada. But agriculture is a short way of saying agriculture, horticulture, viticulture, aquaculture, silviculture, all of those things are defined as agriculture. And there are a few nasty things in there, which of course you can't stop if it's 5 acres or better, or 2 qualified or better. And the ones that usually jump out as being objectionable to people would be pig farms and or
Correct.
herb-bearing animals.
Yeah, it's defined as land shall be deemed to be an agricultural use when primarily and directly used in raising animals, including but not limited to dairy cattle, beef cattle, poultry, sheep, swine, horses, ponies, mules, goats, bees, and fur-bearing animals, for the purpose of selling animals or products derived from such animals in the regular course of business, or when primarily or directly used in a related manner which is incidental thereto and represents a customary and necessary use in raising such animals and preparing them or their products for market.
There's a couple of interesting cases that illustrate the dangers of that. One of them is McDowell versus Sturbridge. Guy is a parcel with 7 acres in size. His front of the lot looks a lot like anybody else's house. And then when it clears the houses of the street, it blossoms out into a bigger parcel in the back, and he's got a barn on it. The neighbors wonder why he's got big box trucks coming, dumping dog food. He's growing dogs in the barn for the moment. And he claims that that's agriculturally protected, and the neighbors say it's kennel. And the court says, well, they're all his dogs, and he's just growing them. It's agriculture. He's growing them for the shop. And he wins. And then last year, 2 years ago, there was a guy growing bearded lizards. I believe it was in the town of Oxford. And he was selling them too. I mean, I think he had 5 acres, and they told him it wasn't agriculture. And so the cases are very unpredictable.
Sure.
Well, the riding stable is also on a 5 acre parcel that's deemed agriculture, whether or not you have other people's horses. So dogs, they got to be all yours. Horses, they can be other people's.
That's why I feel like it's almost counterproductive to divide the agriculture so many ways, where it really is basically about whether you have 2 acres, 5 acres, or whether we want to permit farming on less than 5 acres, which when it comes to like agriculture minus livestock, I don't think there should be almost any restrictions. Like if somebody wants to grow corn on the tiniest lot in town, they should be allowed to.
Okay.
Flowers, a nursery, beekeeping should not be restricted. It doesn't take any room really. That's livestock, but it shouldn't be limited. Where currently we have where it just says livestock over 50, you need 5 acres. Well, 50 cows requires a greatly different amount of room than 50 chickens or 50 bunnies, or somebody that wants to raise bearded dragons or snakes or fish. It shouldn't be limited to the number 50 in livestock. That doesn't make sense.
So how would you then cut the mustard here? Number 1 would stay because you got to do that. What about 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? You seem to be saying that if it's 3, for example, if it's under 5 acres or less than 2 qualified, a farm, orchard, nursery, greenhouse, or tree farm, okay. You seem to be saying that if it's undersized, number 4, you can have livestock but not pigs, poultry, rabbits, or cows.
again, that by saying which livestock we can have, we're limiting what types of livestock, because can you have other types of poultry aside? Well, I mean, it says poultry, but like, there's rabbits allowed, but can you have guinea pigs? Do we define that? Like, mass law allows us to have more domestic animals than we define. I'd say it says cows, but are we allowed to have a bison or a yak?
A llama.
Or a llama, or alpaca, a camel, ostriches, emus. Like, these are all things that are domesticated species that we've not defined in our things, but mass law does. So should we just say all domesticated livestock, maybe with approval from animal control, or whoever has to certify that there's enough room for the animals?
I put a little thing up in the C box at the top there, says, let's look at the Board of Health regulations, if you have any. I didn't do that, but do you have any Board of Health regulations? Because they're usually very prescriptive.
There's certain regulations that the Board of Health would rule under.
It has to do mostly with things like location of the stable or the barn to the property line, that kind of.
Kennel, yeah, they do have kennel licensing and stuff like that.
So, for
So,
instance, like, if somebody on a small lot, if somebody on an acre or less wanted to have a horse, not a whole farm, but a horse, how do they qualify for that?
Right now,
Right? Like, are you just allowed to have it? It doesn't qualify as a horse. You can just have a horse as a pet, and it's not a farm, or.
I have neighbors that have horses, and they're definitely not on 5 acres.
Which is what I mean. Like, I don't think we should regulate small lots from having livestock necessarily. They should not be overburdened by livestock they can't handle. But again, if somebody's on an acre, why can't they have a horse?
I guess the question I would have is who determines whether or not that property is overburdened with these animals?
That's what that's what I'd like to find, as opposed to a number of animals or the size of the lot necessarily beyond mass law.
There's got to be a way, Mike, you've probably seen this in other communities, but to direct that regulation to someone specific or maybe more qualified than for lack of a better term, a building official, right? I mean, the animal control or Board of Health or their regulations to determine the adequacy of a lot for is a horse, right? I mean, I guess to your point, Steve, somebody on the Grove on a 500 square foot lot probably doesn't have adequate space to have a horse.
right.
You know what I mean? And not to push, any type of responsibility on anybody else, but is that something you want the zoning enforcement officer running around if somebody comes and says, I want to have, 2 Clydesdales on my property, I have 7,500 square feet? Or is that something that the animal control officer should regulate, the Board of Health should regulate? So there's got to be a way through this process, and Mark, maybe we lean on you a little bit, but to get that, I guess, avenue, right? Give somebody an avenue to get to that point. And I think I'm behind you, Steve. I don't think you should restrict somebody from having the ability to at least petition some board or authority in town to see if they would qualify for something like that. But
I can send you, in addition to sending you the flexible development piece, I can send you a couple of towns. I believe one of them is just up the road. It might be Sharon. They have very good Board of Health regulations. But it's not a zoning package, it's a Board of Health package.
Maybe we could develop a side chart that describes the minimum amount of square footage each animal requires.
Well, that's a Board of Health matter. I don't think zoning is ever going to be expert enough in that. Unless you hire somebody from the Farm Bureau.
No, and I see every neighbor getting mad at another neighbor kicking this, you know what I mean? It's going to be a nightmare.
Well, I guess the furthest we went was allowing a small number of chickens without a rooster, without a special permit. Because it used to be a full special permit to have 6 chickens in a coop. At least we loosened that, I think, 5 years ago or so.
When I did New Bedford 30 years ago, they had a bylaw that you could only have X chickens on a 5,000 square foot lot and Y chickens on a 10,000 square foot lot. And I said, well, we better get rid of that. That's antiquated. And they said, you're in trouble if you do, because every Portuguese family wants to have a chicken for supper on Sunday. And it's still in the bylaw or the ordinance if you look at it, I think. But what you've got now is you've got this, if you look on page 1213 in the existing zoning, you've got farms, orchards, nurseries, greenhouse, agriculture, and that's, I think, the equivalent of my C1. Then you've got, well, you just say okay. Then you've got farms, livestock on 5 or more acres, excluding swine. You can't do that. If it's 5 or more acres, swine have a home.
Right.
Then you've got less than 5 acres and less than 50. And then you've got rabbits and poultry on 5 acres or more, but you've got to allow that because it's 5 acres or more. So you've got all these breakouts by animals
and they have like for personal use for rabbits and like for poultry and rabbits, but not for like a horse.
right.
Yeah, there are other personal uses, but yeah, I'd like to define the agriculture a little bit more. But my main things is more people should be capable or allowed to, if they qualify, to have livestock.
Well, then I think we ought to take a look at least a couple of Board of Health regulations, which I will send to you.
Cool.
And
I like having it sit in that arena.
yeah, but it's their job, really. All right, so what I tried to do here in C is capture 12 transitioning over to 13 in the existing use table. Because you actually have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 entries, all of them, either depending upon the size of the parcel or the type of the animal or the number of animals in a particular species. But I don't like getting into things like rabbits and adult hens, nut roosters, gender discrimination, confined to cage 12 or under. You need a micrometer to be the building commissioner.
You should, I've had some interesting phone calls, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, well, I can imagine them hiding chickens so they can only have less than 50 when you come.
Well,
I don't know what it's like to live next to a rooster.
I'm sure. Yeah, no, I do know what it's like because I have a house in the wrong place and there's plenty of roosters at 5 o'clock in the morning.
you should try going to a house to make sure that the number of ducks or roosters or chickens doesn't exceed the threshold in the bylaw, and trying to keep track of which one you've already counted and which one you haven't.
That's what
Paint by gun.
That's
Paint by
what
gun.
According to
chalk or spray paint, one of the two.
I like Board of Health and Animal Patrol.
All right, I'm going to show you that.
And Dick, by the way, that was a hazing event. We apologize for that.
I wasn't going to call you out on it, Jim, but I figured really had to break it in there.
Kind of like joining a fraternity.
All right, on to open space and recreation. I think we've already covered some of this, but I like to break this up between indoor and outdoor, and some things just get named because they're big and they require that kind of thing. So golf course is an example, or a health and recreational club. So you've got 150-foot setback for commercial, including tennis. Does this again? I tried to capture what you have.
I'm a little bit the part of the open space thing is that that defines the uses that are, again, allowed within our open space lands. And as far as health or recreational club, that would include something like a Gold's Gym.
Yep.
We already put that in our commercial zone. We have in our residential primary use, it says nonprofit membership owned health or recreational club, including country clubs, serving the residents of Norton. That's already defined as a specific site, like type, and it's not in the open space. Neither one's in the open space.
Okay.
I'm not sure if, like, again, like when we do like a subdivision and they need a 20% open space requirement, would that would fall in this table?
No, that's a table of dimensional requirements. That generally would go in the dimensional table.
No, the table that, like, their 20% open space, they're allowed to use open space and recreational uses in, as defined in our open space and recreational uses table. Whatever we put in our open space and recreational uses table is then part of the chart of things they get to do in their open space area.
I don't view it that way. I view these uses as being more open air, if you will, and that they take a lot of space. So, recreational day camp. My former brother-in-law's family ran a day camp in Sharon. And they ran it for 50 years, and it was ponds and playgrounds, and I think there was a sleepover, and it might have been a day camp. The golf course is pretty much the same show. I mean, you need 150 acres to have a golf course. It's not all open space in some legal designation. It's just open air in the sense that it's a big use.
Sure, but by adding health or recreational club from the commercial zone
I can live with
to
that.
the open space,
Yeah.
does that not? It doesn't negate the recreational day camp part, but it does add the ability for, like, a Gold's Gym to use that space. Like, it's like a commercial entity to put their business on the open space zone. It just seems like it belongs in the commercial zone.
Well, it's not a zone. This is a heading of, or a grouping of certain types of uses, but the zones are the next columns, R80, R60, R40, BC. So I don't have a problem with classifying health or recreational club more as a retail and service use, which is F, than a D, open space or recreational use.
Steve, it's not defining, like you said, in a subdivision, when you approve a subdivision that has open space, that's not what this is for. Is that what you, maybe I misunderstood you, but is that how you're thinking of it as?
Well, that open space is used for agriculture, recreation, or like education. Like, it can be used for those means, but would that be able to be administered by a commercial? And
no, because that's not a zoning district, right? Like Mark just said. So this is I guess it's an adjective for the uses in this table.
Yeah, it's a grouping of similar uses so that you can find them and easily compare them on the same page.
Yeah, so this isn't saying that if you approve a subdivision and there's 20 acres of open space as part of that subdivision approval, that these uses can go in that open space.
Right, exactly.
That's not what this is saying, because in that case, that open space part of that subdivision would be considered almost the same as an R80. It's a zoning district, right? So it's,
I mean, whichever
is a different definition, I guess.
Well, I guess if that open space were in the village commercial zone, then it could be approved by special permit. That a commercial health, like,
it's not the open space that we're focused on here. It's the use on the land of the health or recreational club, like it's a factory or anything else that is independently called out here. So yeah, you could have a health or recreational club in the VCC district, but only if you meet the dimensional requirements for a lot in the VCC district. That doesn't matter at all about open space in the VCC district. That's, I could take off, in D, I could scratch off open space and just say recreational uses. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, because when I read it, I almost read it the way Steve did. Like it's open space, but you can put a Gold's Gym. That defeats, it doesn't make open space to me means no structure.
Why don't I just put indoor and outdoor recreational uses?
I think that's cleaner, Mark. I mean,
Yeah,
and I can see where the misunderstanding is, but the open space in this isn't the zone or the land. It's the use of what he's got on the table.
And again, I for my point of view of it all is that our open space recreation table, it is set for actual just open space and recreational activity, and not for businesses. Essentially, the way we've had it set up is that it's just pretty much outdoor recreation. We do have golf course there, but it, defined or not whether that's a commercial entity, but I don't know if putting indoor and outdoor recreation in that table makes any sense as opposed to the table it's currently in, which is just the commercial zone. If it's a commercial business, it's there.
well,
And aside from that, we've already defined nonprofit entities that can exist within, and we put that in our residential table.
your commercial uses go two full pages with no attempt to discriminate or distinguish between a hotel motel and a artisan food and beverage facility. So what I've tried to do is put food uses together, recreational uses together, motor vehicle uses together. They're all commercial, but I'm making this easier for the user to see in comparison on a single page, like uses. That's the objective here. Right now, I mean, I think you've adequately and professionally listed possible commercial uses on pages 13, 14, and I think it spills over onto page 15 of the use table. But my goal was to whack it back a little bit so that a body art establishment isn't being compared to a hotel.
Fair. Again, with all due respect for you, I appreciate what you're doing. I personally have made this like my pet project for like the last 2 years, and I've also made my own zoning chart too that I've tried presenting a couple times, but I did do a little bit of separations of the categories too, like you said. But it's just something that stands out to me, that the open space and recreation, I'm not sure how. Again, the idea of the Gold's Gym situation, like an extreme version of a recreation or health club, using the open space. It seems like the category is meant specifically for like passive recreation, a campground, or like farming.
Right, so I'm gonna take that category and rename it indoor and outdoor. And I'm gonna take health or recreational club and I'm gonna move it over to F, retail and service uses, because that's really more of what it's like, or it's equally categorizable as one of those uses. And we'll leave the other recreational, like golf course, small scale, day camps, commercial facilities grouped together as recreational uses.
Okay.
All right, so I'm on.
Could I just ask, we have small scale indoor recreation. We used to have a definition for it, and I noticed there's not one in your list. Was that intentional?
No, I didn't see it. I mean, let me take that back. It may be in the existing definitions. Remember, the file I gave you was only new definitions.
Right.
Let me just look and see if small scale is defined.
It is defined in our existing bylaw.
Okay, perfect. Do you know the page it's on?
I'm online. It's probably, I got my book in front of me, I'll tell you right now.
Is it in 2.2 or is it some other section?
No, it's in chapter 2, under definitions. I have it in page 12.1.
Mine's not numbered, I don't know how that is, but
So,
2.2.
yeah. Let's see. Establishment that provides amusement, entertainment, or physical fitness that occurs indoors for a fee or admission charge may require membership and or cater to walk-in customers, may also include food and beverage service. Such uses are not limited to arcades, art, dance, exercise studios, bowling alleys, drama, voice, instrument, instructional studio, health club, fitness center, ice and roller skating, rock climbing, indoor hockey, lacrosse, or soccer, laser tag, martial arts studio, indoor swimming pool, tennis, handball, badminton, racquetball, golf simulation.
If we take that, we've got to add pickleball just to be complete.
Why not? Go for the
That's a
next one.
crazy, that's a crazy salad though.
Yeah.
Well, do we need all those examples?
Well, I'll take a look at it. I think I'm glad there's a definition. We'll start there.
Can I ask if there's any support for doing those in residential by special permit? I'm thinking specifically of like voice or music lessons or a dance studio, something that's,
I think that would be an accessory use. It's a small scale recreation would be the principal use on the property. So typically voice, music, have people coming over to a house where,
Okay.
where the resident teaches them.
okay.
And it's a very traditional accessory use. And if we wanted to be explicit, we could add it to which the accessory uses are in JK.
So,
So we could,
Again, to me, that seems like it's a commercial use.
it's a accessory use,
In-home, accessory or in-home occupation too, right, Mark? Someone may
right?
be able to trigger it under an in-home occupation with no more than 25% of the existing floor space devoted to such use.
Well, they may be able to, but couldn't it operate as a standalone use?
It's not a standalone use, they live there.
For which one are we talking about again?
Well, going back to Laura's question about teaching
Music
people
lessons.
out of the home.
Somebody.
Oh, okay. Well, that's covered under home occupation already.
is it, for example, so when I was growing up, I took dance lessons. They built a barn for all intents and purposes, and that was the dance studio, and it was separate from the house. It was not
Accessory.
within the house.
Yeah,
It's an accessory?
We
yeah,
have that.
accessory too.
Okay.
Sorry. There's home occupation, custom work in home or accessory building by resident with no more than one person regularly employed.
Well, I had a case about 3 years ago, with Judge Foster of the Land Court involving a 1 million square foot grow facility in Charlton, marijuana. 860,000 square feet in the building were grow, and $140 was quote unquote accessory uses, which consisted of manufacturing, processing, and packaging. Their argument was if I grew tomatoes, I could can them as an accessory use. And I argued that those uses were not listed in the table. And there's a rule of thumb in construing a use table that if it's not listed, you can't do it. So there were maybe 12 things you could do in the district as an accessory use, but none of them were manufacturing or processing. And Judge Foster ruled that unlike principal uses, which must be listed, accessory uses are so numerous that they need not be listed as long as they meet the definition of an accessory use, which means a use customarily associated with and incidental or subordinate to the principal use on the same lot. And so he allowed it. And I think he's right. I've taken that approach to extend.
Yeah,
if you go back and look at the section 3 I've given you, that's pretty much what it says. And teaching music out of your house is a classic accessory use going back 100 years.
But we have a couple definitions here that are already in our books. One small scale indoor recreation is, in my mind, clearly a commercial thing, and it may be a home business, but it is definitely a commercial thing. We have artisan manufacturing, which is the label, but that includes teaching of how to do that. It might be basket weaving, it might be whatever, but that in our definition is a little bit weird. It allows sort of like teaching, essentially. So we also have artisan food and beverage, which is small scale manufacturing of food and beverage, like essentially making products. All three of those could be a home occupation or a standalone business on it by itself. I don't think they fall into an accessory table. They may just be standalone things, and they could be incidental also as a home occupation. If we were going to do something separate, maybe we would write home occupation, like other permitted use, or like permitted commercial use.
But as a standalone, they would have to be allowed in that zoning district. Ancillary or accessory to the primary dwelling is a different situation, different story. I think in our current bylaw, that's not the case.
Okay, so are we trying to, again, I think the point is that it's not allowed in that district as a standalone. But if you were a home occupation that wanted to do, like there's a bakery on Reservoir Street that's a home occupation. Currently, they're not allowed to sell it out front and have somebody sit down at a picnic table. How do we get? I mean, I don't think it's making small scale indoor recreation or artisan food and beverage an accessory use. It's about special permitting.
No, it's not at all. I mean, I think what you got to do, if you want it to be allowed both as a principal and accessory use, you list it in both places. That's all. And if somebody has a standalone small scale indoor recreation facility, it's allowed in the districts that are on the D category. If you want to allow it as an accessory use, you move it as well back to K or whatever that is. And I don't disagree that some of these things walk the line. But clearly somebody bringing pupils into a home and teaching them music is an accessory use, not a principal use. So that'd be an example of something that you would want to list. I mean, I think Judge Foster more or less gets you off the hook on K. If you only list 9 things, there's more that you can do. That's his answer from the bench.
I've written that before, Mark, too, with the zoning stuff in town, and town councils even weighed in a little bit, that it's probably physically impossible for us to encapsulate every single possible use, right? Ancillary or primary in our bylaw. It's just a feat that I don't think we could ever accomplish.
Is Amy Questle your town council?
Yeah.
Yes.
So Amy Questle and I had a case a year and a half ago. We did it on a case stated, meaning that we wrote the facts down for the judge that we didn't disagree about. There's a Boxford guy in his 80s, my client, and he was making in his garage 1/8 scale model locomotives off the blueprints of famous Pacific locomotives that once trod the earth. He made every part. He had the machinery to do that. The metal came in FedEx packs. He made no smoke, no glare, no emission, no noise. The neighbors, he applied to put a building out back, which would have allowed him to get his garage back. The neighbors claimed that he was a machine shop. I claimed that he had an interesting hobby. Am I supposed to list every hobby? Judge Foster came to the house with Amy, and I remember he got out of his car as we entered the garage. He said, "Mark, can I take a picture? My wife's really interested in this case. I said, sure, Judge, have at it. And then my client and the judge went down the basement.
Oh,
Well, and then Amy pointed out to me that there was a picture of a naked woman that the guy, my client, just to throw amusement in his garage. I said, oh, that's his wife, Amy. Let's move on. And the judge took on a year to rule that he was no different than Alexander Calder, making giant metal statues in his garage. And so you can't list every hobby, right?
No.
I don't even.
We do have that in our use table already as home craftsmanship.
Except that there are always people going to stretch the boundaries of what that is. I mean, I can imagine people working in wood, metal. I can imagine them painting, large scale. But at the end of the day, to the judge, the judge was right. A hobby is a hobby is a hobby. He wasn't selling any of this stuff. And he's building the second one right now.
Wow.
1/8 scale, that's pretty big.
Yeah. I mean, it's a big finished product. It's 8 to 10 feet.
Yeah, okay, wow.
You could ride on those.
He does. There is a national association of people making scale model locomotives, and there are tracks that they have where you can set these things up. But it's never. He doesn't make parts for other people. It's not commercial.
Right.
It's not even a home occupation because it's not occupying him in the sense of a cash return.
Yeah.
So I'm pushing you to get over to E. I think it's going to get easier. Yellow is stuff you don't have. You have administrative, professional. The usual thing here is business or professional. So I kept admin, but just added business. Medical or dental office or clinic. It's important to keep those as a separate type of office because the typical office use is parked at one space per 200 square feet. I'm sorry, 250 square feet. And a medical or dental office is always parked at a little higher rate, usually a difference of 50 square feet. So 200 for a medical, 250 for a business office. And that's readily apparent why when you go to your doctor's appointment and there's 8 people ahead of you. And then life sciences seems to be something that you want to emphasize. Don't have a problem with that. Banks.
Yeah, because life science manufacturing is so restrictive, we wanted to make sure that there was a call out for an office use in the same industry.
Yeah, I get it. Banks, computer programming, I assume the same thing applies there. Message centers and conference centers. I think you probably
Electronic message center.
yeah, it's a good question. I don't know if you have a definition. Let me look.
We have lots of definitions around electronic message center. That means a digital billboard. We have a whole section about that. That's crazy.
Does it need to be an office?
I thought that was a signage term too.
That's what I
Signed by law.
Is that it? So what section is that?
I got
At
it.
the end, right? It's at the end.
Chapter 8.
Chapter 8.
Chapter 8, section 8.2. I have it on my book is on page 41.
I got a number of my pages, I guess.
in the bottom right hand corner. At least my printout is.
Yeah, mine's bottom in the middle.
If I can ask, by dividing up the table out of the commercial section, does that now remove that from the restriction on the 10,000 square foot special permit?
No, I'll put in each of the subsections, if it's over 10,000 square feet, it's a special permit, regardless of what the table says. And that's the model that Dedham uses. They have an entry that says any of the uses set forth above in E1 through 7 larger than, what's yours, 25,000 or 10,000?
10,000.
Yeah.
So I don't think electronic message center needs to be here.
It's just a type of sign, right?
I think so.
Yes, yes.
It's gotta be somewhere. Where it goes, I don't know.
Okay, and in the sign section, this would be,
It's a definition and sign.
yeah, but with regard to the operation of one, you would only be allowed to do it in VC, VCCC, and I, and not in the residence district. So I'll just add that over to the sign section. What did you have in mind when you adopted a conference provision?
Such a meeting hall, I think.
It's an office
Like
use.
Is it basically an auditorium?
Freestanding? Or is like part of a hotel? There's a hotel down the road. I don't know if it's in your town. I think it's right on the line between you and
Taunton.
Yeah,
Right over the line.
I speak to the building commissioners there every year. Is it in Taunton?
Yeah, the old Holiday Inn.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, the
Yeah,
conference center on the base floor.
Yeah.
Yeah, a convention center, or an auditorium, some sort of public gathering hall.
Fine, yeah, that type of thing.
Why is that? That shouldn't be an office use then, should it?
I mean, that's why I thought it just
It
made
could
sense
be.
to have a
Yeah.
general commercial table as opposed to dividing out. They like electronic messaging center, restaurants, conference center, offices. They all are commercial entities, and the commercial table might need to be rearranged, but I think they all just fall within a commercial table.
Only if you want to have body art and a hotel in the same table.
I think they do. I mean, I got tattoos myself, and I've stayed in hotels.
I mean, if I'm looking to build a hotel and there are national chains doing it, they've got to wade past the body art.
What I'm hearing is we may need an other commercial uses table.
Well, I
So we
think
can put anything that doesn't fit neatly and,
Yeah,
and move on to
Commercial general.
the subject.
yeah, there's a provision towards the end here. It's just miscellaneous commercial uses. So.
So
Yeah.
the message center and conference center can go there if we don't have any, if we don't mind.
All right, I found a definition for conference center that I'll run past you here and add. I don't think I'd seen it before. But what this is basically referring to is a freestanding building in which a facility used for conferences and seminars with accommodations for sleeping, food prep and eating, recreation, entertainment, resource facilities, and meeting rooms. I don't know about.
Okay, so it's La Salette, basically.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That's probably what it's based off of, isn't it? Right in Attleboro is the La Salette Retreat
I know
Center.
what you mean. I know what you mean.
Yeah,
Do you want
it's not
that?
the church, but that's probably where the use is from.
With accommodations for sleeping, food prep?
They've got it.
Yeah, but I mean, is that what you want? I mean, if this is part of a hotel like the one I speak at down the road, I get it, but
Like an unaffiliated VFW.
I guess with a lot of veterans sleeping.
I don't see a burning need to remove it if it's already on the books. I
Okay.
think that's my,
Well, maybe we'll argue then over the definition. Maybe we'll take out sleeping, but not food prep and eating because you got to feed the people at the conference center. So I'll put the definition into the new definitions and we can look at that one more time. Okay, so I'm on retail and service uses. I added personal and general service establishments. I think I'm going to move over the fitness to here. Personal services, nail salon, barber shop. General services is more oriented towards things, so it would be appliance repair, upholstery, things of that sort. And there are definitions that are added to the new definitions.
Is there a difference? Well, trade services, is that going to be like a plumber or carpenter type of thing, or?
Yeah, and I think you had that already.
one of the things that I saw that now that we're on the retail and service, we had repair and service shops, including auto repair, that you removed and put into minor or light auto repair or something like that.
Yeah, I think there's a motor vehicle repair,
Right.
which would be H2.
So with a general, like a repair and service shop that includes auto repair in an enclosed garage, I think is meant to be for a repair and service shop that might do automotive upholstery or like a installation of a car stereo. Not necessarily mechanical auto stuff, but something that involves some sort of service to a car that's not engine related. The way that somebody might upholster furniture or repair a grandfather clock or any service or repairs. I think that's what was meant by that. And the inclusion of the car was not meant to make it an automotive entity. It's just that sometimes repairs have to happen to a car, if that makes sense.
What are the general definitions here? I'm having trouble finding. Are they up front in page in the beginning?
2.2. Yeah.
So what does that say about auto repair?
Well, again, it's not. I think that's the point. It's not meant to be automotive repair in the sense as somebody's working on an engine and changing their oil. I think that's already in a commercial or industrial use, but a service shop might have somebody bring their car to their house, to their garage, so they can upholster the car to sew it back up, like if the seat's ripped.
I get that. All I'm trying to figure out is where that definition comes from.
I don't think it's in the definitions.
It's not.
Okay.
I don't want to take service and repair shops off the table, if that makes sense.
Like Steve, are you saying that's in the commercial table now?
Yes, right now we have service and repair shops, including auto repair, if that works done in a garage. But it's not meant to be an auto repair facility necessarily, unless they're just doing minor, like a car stereo.
Oh, I see. Okay, so repair and service shops, including auto repair, is where I got that from.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying it's a more general repair and service shop?
Yeah, it says as long as there's no long-term outside storage of wrecked cars, including welding, auto body repair, soldering, that might be incidental to the repair. So it's for somebody to fix a car, but it's not necessarily a garage. Like a service station as like their main use.
So doesn't the addition of F2 honor what this says? This says repair and service shops, including auto repair, and then it goes on to talk about cars. So I kind of figured that was a car regulation. That's why it's over there in motor vehicle. I get it to the extent you want to do upholstery. It really doesn't have much to do with the car. But wouldn't that be addressed under personal or general service establishment?
It's sort of a stretch in two ways. In a way, because like I guess if we're talking general service, could also mean like does that mean repair shops? Like how far is a general service before it's a trade? How far if I fix your shoe, is it a repair shop? Is it a general service? And is that different from me fixing your appliance? If you bring a toaster to me, am I a trade service now or a general service? And then if I fix something, can I sell it? Now I'm a retail establishment.
Yeah, they're regulated in the same way, so it's, at the end of the day, it's not going to matter. The service establishments that I put into the definitions were For general, shop for lawnmower, small appliance repair, upholstery or furniture repair, bicycle repair, printer, blacksmith, builder, carpenter, lawnmower, mason, painter, plumber, roofer. Personal would be hair, nail, salon, barber shop, tanning beds, dry cleaning, print shop, photography studio, and the like. And then trade, builder, carpenter, electrician, landscaper, mason, painter, paper hanger, printer, plumber, roofer. So I think you're right in the sense that this existing entry into the use table was intended to cover all repair and service, and then it unduly focuses on cars.
Yeah, that's what I think. Yes, if it makes sense, it almost feels like the general services part should
Yep.
go with the trade services, like a service and repair shop and other trade services, kind of grouped together, and then like a barber or hairdresser or something like that. That sort of is a separate category than a plumber.
Okay, does everybody agree?
Does that make sense at all? I mean, right now it's currently they're all three grouped together as one entity.
Yeah. I think it does make sense to keep, a personal service establishment separate from the general. You might ultimately regulate them differently, and you've already got the line item set up to do that.
I mean, I'm not against all three: retail, personal service, general service, and trades, all staying in one category together. I haven't actually really had a problem with that because they overlap so much. A service and repair shop might also sell things as retail, or again, how the spectrum blending into one or the other overlaps so much.
As long as we feel it makes sense, I have no problem moving forward with it.
I mean, would be.
I've lost the point, to be honest.
I'd rather not divide it up.
Divided up how? What are you saying is divided up here?
I don't get the point. Somebody explain it to me.
We have retail, service, trade, shop. Like that's already one category. We're being presented to divide it up into three, and
Right.
I don't feel the need to divide that into three separate categories.
It doesn't hurt anything.
Yeah, I don't think it's a
It
negative.
clarifies.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like it does. I feel like the Venn diagram of what each one does overlaps so much that now it's not clear which one is what.
I think they're all treated the same. They're all
And then it
treated the
doesn't
same.
matter because they're all the same. They're all allowed the same thing. It doesn't matter.
So we could change, if something comes up in a year or two that fits one and not the other, we might at that point say, good to have separate line item listings, and then we may change how they're treated, but now they're not treated any different from each other. So I agree, it doesn't matter.
You gotta look at it from a standpoint of where my position is at too, Steve, though. Like sometimes the more opportunities we have to define something, even if it's as minute as what this is, the easier and the better it is for us and the applicant coming in.
I agree in theory that it's better to define what each category is. What I'm saying is the way it's being defined right now and what the categories are actually seem to overlap each other to a degree. Where again, if you're like a shoe repair person, do you have to apply separately as a retail establishment if one's permitted? Can you sell shoes but not repair shoes? Can you repair but not sell
No,
them?
because they're both regulated the same.
Unless
matter.
we decide to change how we regulate them. That's I don't know.
I would leave it. I don't think it hurts, or I don't think it hurts to leave it the way it is, because it's not really. I think it's fine. If they were regulated differently, then I could see your point. But with them being regulated the same, I think it's a moot point.
Yeah.
And so are we removing,
We're halfway through this document, an hour and 45 minutes in. Let's keep going.
I'm merging trade and general service and keeping personal as a separate category. We can take it up again next time.
okay,
Fair enough.
All right, G, restaurant uses. I had a couple of things here that I didn't see and I had questions on. So you have restaurants, nightclubs, food and beverages, but do you allow fast food? And I know drive-through is a special permit. So fast food is a separate category of food, usually comes, ready-made and is delivered to you on a plastic plate, and it's got litter issues as opposed to sit-down restaurants. I think that sometimes don't allow fast food in certain districts. Dartmouth is a good example. In the office industrial district, they have a requirement that you go sit down for food. I recently got a use variance for a Burger King there. But everybody thought it was dumb, but nobody wanted to go to town meeting, so they gave me the use variance. Brewery or winery, that's a popular use these days. Do you want to allow it? Do you have one now? If you have one now, where is it?
Yeah,
Maybe
we
we
do.
should just,
We have them.
maybe we should encourage breweries or wineries by advertising that they're allowed in certain districts. So sort of fill in the blank kind of thing.
breweries and wineries, sorry.
Go ahead, Steve.
Breweries and wineries are currently covered under artisan food and beverage, but there's limited quantities. I don't know if there's,
So do you want Treehouse to come to Norton? Because I can arrange that.
Yes,
I'd be
please.
cool with that.
So I don't think you want to do this in a I-80, R-60, or R-40 district. Brewery or winery would be allowed where?
If I recall in the Mass General Law about agriculture, we're actually not allowed to not permit a brewery or winery on a farm.
Yeah, on a farm.
So the R80 district in particular is our main farming district. It has the most allowances. I think a brewery or winery might require a special permit in those zones because we can't necessarily not allow it on a farm.
All right, so do you want me to put special permit if on the farm?
Or if it qualifies under Mass General Law.
Yep.
For agriculture.
And what about a non-farm brewery or winery in your other 4 districts?
I'd be cool with it wherever else.
So that
Right now, it's allowed in the other 4, VC, VCC, C, and commercial and industrial. It's just not allowed in any of the residential zones.
Okay. And what about fast food?
I'd be very cool with regulating that.
Yeah, it's important to break it out.
Yeah, right now, it's just others, it's under restaurants, nightclubs, and other places serving food or beverage.
Yeah, right.
Same as the other one, not allowed in any residential zone, but allowed in the other 4.
Okay, what if we put fast food as a special permit in the other 4? Keep the
Right.
kids from eating junk.
Yeah, because we also regulate drive-throughs through special permit. So most fast food places, you're gonna have a drive-through.
That's true.
Okay,
I think that's good, and we can flag both of those as topics of discussion when we do a public outreach.
yeah.
Absolutely, that's a good idea, Tim.
All right, back to motor vehicle, light services, gasoline. The definition of light service is what you expect to see today. It's a combo.
Where are you?
I'm on H.
Oh, H, thank you.
So combos are donuts, convenience, and gas. And this is, an industry favorite. So, but they don't usually do mechanical repair. They don't even do oil changes these days.
Hmm.
So that's like a big retail facility that just happens to have pumps in the front. And then I think the next entry for 2 would be auto body repair, paint, soldering, or welding shop, which is in the existing table. And that's just, I think I put a little red no there because there's no empty in the table there, if I remember correctly.
You can combine those 2 in the use chart.
No, forget about the one on motor vehicle repair that it's done in an unenclosed building. I mean, I could put under auto body repair, all that stuff about unenclosed buildings. So I would move that down to the auto body repair, paint, soldering, or welding shop. And it would just say that. My point is that when I was doing, it did say no in the commercial district. So I'm just take the red out, that's all. Oh, I was calling the attention to the difference between 2A and 2B, that's all. So just consider those two ends to be ends, the red ones. And then sailor or newer used motor vehicles, drive-through, car wash and commercial parking facilities. Commercial parking is something that charges you money to park, but it's not it's not the parking lot for the furniture store.
Okay, can we get a definition? I'm afraid of somebody coming in and saying, well, an Amazon van lot qualifies as commercial parking.
Let me just go to the definitions. Somebody look at the existing, I'll go to my new ones.
There's not a new one.
No. Is it in the existing?
We don't have one.
Okay, so a commercial parking lot is a parking lot in which there's a pay to park. And it's not something generally associated with a business.
Okay.
So you see, for example, in Walpole, there are commercial parking lots where commuters park to go to Boston on the train. And they pay for a sticker, they buy stickers by the month, and yeah, it goes like that.
Would this also cover something like the lot for a bunch of Amazon trucks?
Yeah, that's what I had just asked about. That's why I wanted to put a definition in there so that they can't say that an Amazon van lot is a commercial parking facility.
I know what you want. Yeah. So I had a definition for commercial parking lot that addresses the issue.
Maybe for limit it to personal use vehicles.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Miscellaneous. When I deal with adult entertainment, I generally treat all subspecies of adult entertainment equally. So adult bookstores, adult entertainment, cabarets, it's all the same. And you only allow them in one district, which is industrial. The key to adult establishments is that you're free to regulate them, but you can't regulate the speech itself. I'll show you how to get around that in the next effort, or maybe the one after that that we cover. But most importantly, you have to provide an adequate opportunity for the exercise of the speech. So in a town like, there's not been much litigation on this, but in a place like Tingsboro, there was a series of cases, and I think they zoned something like less than 1% of the town. It was 10 lots in a 10,000 square acre town. And the court said that that was an adequate opportunity for the exercise of the speech. In Medford, on the other hand, more than 1%, a city block was zoned, and they said that was insufficient. So that's something that the courts look at if there's a challenge. I doubt there will be, but I'm just pointing out that you should be looking at the availability of these establishments, not just the regulations, because courts probably going to do both.
That works. I like having it all under one. That way we'll have to judge what's the accessory use in this facility.
Yeah. And body art is treated the same way. It's speech to both the artist and the bearer. So you have to allow, again, an equal opportunity for the speech. And I see you sticking everything in your industrial district, which is a very common trick.
Yeah.
Just have to make sure that it's not minuscule.
Is there anybody else that would be in favor or not opposed to moving body art establishment also to the commercial district?
Yes, and I think we kind of have to, because body art, I did an email to Mark back a little while ago, which states that body art covers a lot of territory right now, and it also includes restorative and cosmetic micropigmentation, which is permanent makeup.
Mm-hmm.
They're only allowed by special permit in industrial, but I know of at least one cosmetic micropigmentation establishment that is not an industrial currently. So my proposal at the time was, given kind of the increase in both the prevalence and acceptance of tattoos and piercings in general, and the broadening of the industry specifically into more cosmetic and restorative applications, I think we need to consider potentially expanding where we're allowing it.
Is commercial the most likely candidate for that?
Yeah.
What about, and look at other communities, right? Like the VCC zone in this town, Paul's vision when he was here was a downtown like Main Street in Falmouth. What about in a VC or a VCC zone? Drive through Bridgewater Center, there's a tattoo and a body piercing place right in the center of town, across from the green, within 50 feet of each other.
I would love for it.
No issue.
If I could also say, some people do it as a home occupation also.
We're not tattooing and piercing as a home occupation. I think Board of Health will probably regulate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're licensed.
Yeah, there's licenses required, but and the Board of Health regulates that.
Okay.
So just to have a fun workshop meeting, what if we changed the last 4 columns to BA?
Yeah. Then you regulate to a certain extent, right? But it's still it's an option for certain people.
It opens up opportunities.
Yes. And
Okay.
Another one for public outreach.
Yeah, this is, so the rest of these are just things that didn't have a home. There's 3 at the end that talk about marijuana.
Can I go to number 3?
Yeah,
Why is number 3 a yes in R80, but no in R60 and R40 and VCC?
let me just make sure that that's what it
That
was.
may be the current gym.
Yeah. I seem to remember that came up a few
Trying to
years
go
ago.
back. I think that's currently what we have. And it kind of makes sense because R80 is going to be your biggest lot size.
Okay.
Yeah, so it is. So right now, it's allowed by right in R80
Yeah,
and in commercial zoning districts. It's special permit in village, commercial and industrial, and no in the other 3.
Okay.
that's
Again, a kennel just in itself is livestock. It is essentially a farm that we've decided dogs are a different thing. And also, veterinary hospital is very much needed in a farming area. The R80 is supposed to be our farming district.
I just wanted to make sure that wasn't a typo or it was accurate.
Sure.
And that's how we currently have it. But that, like Mark said earlier too, we can look at the Board of Health regs and maybe put some weight into those before you make a decision on that stuff.
Yep.
I look with trepidation to 9 and 10.
Why?
Have you had recent fights on Telecommunications Act issues?
Yeah.
We had a
I
couple
could
recently
tell.
at ZBA, right, Tom?
So
Yeah.
what are the fights?
Boy, this was a residence that was on a commercial or industrial lot.
Industrial.
Residence as of right, and the applicant wanted to put a tower right in back of it, but so the residence would have been within the fall zone. It was quite mixed up. I'm not sure I can adequately remember or explain it. I don't even remember. I think they withdrew the application because we were getting so cranky.
Okay.
You're accurate.
Thanks.
And what is your general, so you allow wireless facilities on an existing structure, like a church steeple or a chimney?
Yeah.
And then with regard to wireless facilities, otherwise, you're requiring, you're basically saying on a monopole is okay. Are there gaps in coverage that result?
Yes, it's been presented to us that there are gaps, and also that emergency services tend to piggyback on WCFs so that it's in the town's interest to, permit as many of them as we can.
Yeah, right now, the children at the newly constructed Concord Carlisle High School cannot call their parents to tell them to come pick them up because the nurse is sending them home. Oh, I get gaps in coverage. It's astounding that we live with 5G communication devices that operate like it's dial-up.
I operate only for a couple of miles from a tower.
Yeah.
Yeah. They were looking at it too with this particular case with public safety. Right to your point, Mark, what God forbid there was a mass event at that school and the kids can't contact anybody else at the school because they don't have service.
Yeah.
Right? That's the big concern.
Well, I mean, I guess I'm going to leave it the way it is, but just point out that a gap in coverage has been equated by the federal courts as a prohibition unlawfully in contravention of the statute. So,
Right. Also,
I would also say if you have any stock regulations about big wireless towers, that might be good to compare with our existing ones.
okay.
The existing rules that we have around the fall zone and different things are, they're not worded in an effective way. The way that we interpreted one that we looked at recently was that we had to draw the fall zone like the shed that was going to be next to the tower was going to pick up and fall itself 200 feet to the left. Because it was the definition of the structure captured the shed, which meant that the fall zone went from the furthest edge of the shed and based on the total height. So it was, yes.
There was also a
The
question.
shed is not going to fall 200 feet.
Sorry to interrupt, unintentional. There was also a question because the word monopole is in the bylaw. Is that the only type of tower that we are allowing now? And I don't remember, but wasn't that part of it, Jim?
Yeah, it was.
Yes, it was. Sorry, I was on mute.
As opposed to lattice towers.
Right, thank you.
All right, well, let me jump to the other one that kind of, because it's getting late, that caught my eye was the last thing in industrial uses, large-scale ground-mounted solar. Solar is
We were advised, we looked at that last year in terms of updating it. It was recently changed to special permit everywhere. We basically, the advice from town council was, if you're not sure what you want to do with it, don't give the attorney general anything new to look at.
So it's SB across the board?
I think so.
Okay.
Or maybe no in some areas, but the minimum is special permit.
When did town meeting take that up?
The last time, it's been taken up like 4 times.
Yeah, My ballot still shows in October 22, Tim, that it was a no everywhere except for industrial.
Okay.
I may have missed something.
That might be correct. No, that's probably correct. But
'Cause we
we
just-
advised town council not to,
Touch
if
it.
you don't get the Attorney General anything new to look at, they can't tell you that you're violating Tracer Lane.
That's an old trick.
We spent some time when Maria
It
was
works though.
on that whole bylaw, and it just, like Tim said, it got kind of mucky.
So you know the latest controversy in the Commonwealth, right? There's a case from Waltham. It didn't even involve the facility in Waltham. The facility was in the neighboring town, but they had to use Waltham roads to get there. And long story short is that it was only allowed in Waltham in the industrial district, which was less than 2% of Waltham. And the Supreme Judicial Court said that's a violation of Chapter 48, Section 3, which basically Judge Piper of the Land Court, Chief Judge, has said enjoys the same protection as churches, schools, and child care facilities, which would mean you can't say no to it in any district.
Wow.
That's the Land Court position right now. And I just recently redid Berkeley zoning while we're going through this. Nobody knows. I remember going to a meeting of the Abstract Club, which is like 100 property lawyers, and somebody spoke on the Waltham case. And I raised my hand and said, "What am I supposed to tell town meeting tonight? What's fair and legal for a municipality to do?" The example is extreme. 2% is not enough. Okay, well, duh. Anybody could figure that out. But what is enough? Is it 50%? Is it no in some districts and special permit in other districts, but the possibilities are 50%? Can I say no in any district? There are no answers to these questions, and we're still waiting for the next shoe to drop. So I like the advice, don't touch it if you don't want to show it to the Attorney General. I kind of wish I had done that in one small town where I just wrote the bylaw. In Berkeley, I said, let's put it everywhere on site plan approval. Every district, we only have 4 districts. And that passed town meeting. And I'm sure that would pass the court review, even in the land court. So this is just something we're going to have to understand, that we're waiting for answers, and it may come while we're doing this and it may not.
So I don't want to hold this up any further, but I thought I found a typo, but I'm checking our use table, and it's the same way. Going back to miscellaneous commercial use number 12, marijuana establishment.
Yeah.
We've got a marijuana overlay, and it is in village commercial, so I'm not sure why it's not in there as special permit.
And it's in village commercial by special permit.
Yeah, I can show you I just pulled up the zoning map just to make sure, because I was fairly certain we had village commercial that allowed marijuana.
Yeah, but if you look at the use table.
I know our current table, I also think is wrong.
Okay, yeah, as a mother.
Yeah, so
Yeah. And so this is an overlay district, right?
it is.
Usually you don't put overlay district stuff in the use table. So this will probably come out. And we'll just leave it to the regulations of the overlay.
Okay, so marijuana will come out entirely?
Well, there'll be a section of overlay districts all grouped together. So floodplain, water resource, marijuana, whatever else you got. A lot of people do wireless as an overlay too.
Okay, but it will come out of the use table?
Yes, and I'll correct it if we're gonna do a table.
Yeah.
Within the overlay district language, I'll move it over there and fix it.
Okay. Brian, I'll send you an email to see what we passed at town meeting, but I think our current bylaw use table is wrong.
Yeah, it definitely says no. All right, so accessory uses, just quickly, couple of things I added here that you didn't have: adult daycare. There are people who have out of their home daycare for adults. These are people that are recovering from surgery or an accident, or people that are entering into early stages of memory loss. Their children work. For the most part, these are seniors, and they get dropped off in the morning and picked up in the afternoon. I represented a woman in Canton who was a retiring nurse from the local hospital, and this was something she wanted to do. I argued that it was Dover protected, and Judge Kilborn, former chief judge of the land court, said it was not because it didn't have a curriculum. And I got so pissed off, I put it in everybody's bylaw ever since. So here you are. He said it was a warehouse, and I said,
What?
right.
Wow.
Anyway, family daycare or family childcare home, large and small, I've already explained. My default is to put it in small style, but 6 kids, including kids who live there, is to just say yes. And if it's large, it's 10 kids, including kids who live there, and that's special permit. I mean, I'm cranky enough to, if I wake up next door to a new neighbor and they're gonna run a child care home out of their property, and on a 25,000 square foot lot, and I've got 10 kids running around in my backyard, I want a special permit hearing, please. Other than that, this is pretty much what you have already. And then that's 9 is in the statute. It's a provision that allows mad scientists to conduct activities out of their home by special permit. There is a fascinating case from the town of Kingston in which a gentleman is, this is a true story, he's researching the properties of mollusks for use as an adhesive in outer space. Seriously. And he's also got to raise his house because he's in a FEMA flood zone.
Oh.
His son's going under the house with a bobcat and he hits a pillar. And the whole town thinks he's cloning rats. When the house pillar is hit, the kid gets hurt and the dad rushes him to the hospital. The building inspector goes to the house, bulldozes it within 45 minutes.
Himself?
The four people, somebody from the yard comes with a town-owned, tractor, bulldozer, something. And I have a picture of it. It sticks 45 minutes later. The guy comes home, he loses all of his experiments, and he sues the town, and he's awarded, brace yourself, $4 million.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's a powerful little bit of statutory adventure.
Mm-hmm.
And then I put a couple of things in the back for common driveway. Digital electronic billboard. I think we probably already have that under electronic messaging.
But
And that's
digital
the show.
electronic billboard and electronic messaging board are separately defined.
Yeah. All right. So the definitions, I'll let you look at those. If you see anything you want to flag, let me know. We'll cover that at the beginning of the next meeting. And next meeting calendar. I got to get my calendar. So the next meeting, I think I'm going to cover non-residential changes to the bylaw or non-residential issues. And I think I remember telling you that I was going to move your nicely done criteria for site plan approval to a section that will be labeled performance standards. I think they really are performance standards. So I'm going to show you some revisions to parking, signage, performance standards, which will include landscaping, noise, lighting, traffic, utility connections, things of that sort. That's probably the emphasis on non-residential. And then when we get to non-residential, to residential, I've kept a list of the things that I promised you to put in the bank, like flexible development, animal regulations, and things of that sort. We'll cover that if we have time next time. What's your full meeting schedule here with regard to town meeting? I don't want to interfere with that.
Town meeting, I think, for spring is mid-May this year.
Okay.
May 13th.
I was
Okay,
going to say the 17th, I'll have it in front of me, but Laura, you might be right.
So can we squeeze in something maybe the week of the 8th of April or the 22nd of April. I'm going for a few days the week of the 15th.
Yeah, for school vacation week, that works fine for me.
Is that, what is school vacation week? Is it the 15th?
Patriots Day week.
My calendar doesn't say Patriots Day for the
It's
first
like
time
the
in years.
The mid-teen, the low teens that week.
15, yeah, okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, I only would have Tuesday that week. If we could do Tuesday the 16th, that would work for me, but your kids are.
I was gonna say no. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
not
you're
that
out of
week.
town. Yeah, you're out of town. Okay, so how about the 24th or the 25th?
And, one of our ZBA members can't do Wednesdays generally,
How about,
right?
No, it's at 5.
You have the second Wednesday.
Second Wednesdays and then at 5. You would have to do them later in the evening on Wednesdays.
Thank you.
so I could do Monday, I have a doctor's, well, no, that's just a phone call. I could do Monday the 22nd or Thursday the 25th.
I'm more inclined to the 25th just to give a break between planning board meetings.
Yeah,
Yeah, see,
okay. You wanna do it at 5 or you wanna do it at 6 or 7? 5, 6, 7, you tell me.
6 is better for me, but
I'm in the office till 7:30, so whatever works for you guys, I can be available on Thursdays.
6 p.m. works.
Okay, Thursday, the 25th of April at 6 p.m. You're in my book.
It's a date.
All right, Brian, I'll send you the next material within the next 10 days or so. And if you'll be kind enough to distribute it, we'll go from there. Thanks. There's a lot of work to go through the use table, but I think we made a good crack at it, and I'm glad we did. Thank you.
Before we go further, can I ask something real quick before everybody gets off? I know it's late. I have a list of like 10 things I want to add to the uses table. Can we go over those at the beginning of the next meeting?
Why don't you circulate them in advance, Steve, so that everybody has a chance to look at them?
Awesome. Thank you.
I've been sending stuff to Brian and asking for his courtesy in circulating it, so I recommend the same.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great.
Motion
All right.
again?
Moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I,
Okay.
Have a good night, everyone.
Guys, thank you.
thank you very much.
Night, everybody.
All right.